Hello, and thank you Northern California Botanist Symposium for inviting me to come talk. I'm Jess Kindred, Great Basin Native Seed Collection Lead with the Bureau of Land Management's Plant Conservation and Restoration Program. I work through an agreement with the Great Basin Institute, whose mission is to advance applied research and ecological literacy through community engagement and agency partnerships that support public lands. Today I'll discuss native seed collection in the Great Basin through Seeds of Success, as well as other partnerships. In 1999, Congress acted after the worst wildfire season in history, directing agencies to, quote, develop a long-term program to manage and supply native plant materials for various federal land management, restoration, and rehabilitation needs. They recommended that the Interagency Plant Conservation Alliance lead this effort. The Plant Conservation Alliance, or PCA, is a public-private partnership of organizations that share the same goal to protect native plants by ensuring that native plant populations and their communities are maintained, enhanced, and restored. In response to Congress's directive, and in coordination with the PCA, the BLM created the Plant Conservation and Restoration Program. The demand for native seed has only increased since then, along with the intensity and frequency of wildfires and other natural disasters. To help with this problem and to increase the supply of native plant materials, the Native Plant Materials Development Process, the process highlighted in this slide, needs to be implemented, which is the mission of the PCRP. In the same way that it takes time to develop agricultural crops, it takes time to develop stable and economical supplies of native plant materials, oftentimes 5 to 10 years, because we are still learning about all the germination and growing requirements for these species. This is the process by which federal agencies increase capacity within their own agency, as well as the private sector, for the production of ecologically appropriate seed. And as we'll talk about in a minute, Seeds of Success is the first step in this process. Specifically, how we strengthen and support all the parts of the native plant materials development cycle is laid out in the National Seed Strategy, which came out in 2015. The National Seed Strategy was created by the BLM and PCA Federal Committee to ensure a coordinated approach to getting the right seed in the right place at the right time. So far, the seed strategy has been a success, with hundreds of partners engaged and millions of dollars invested in seed collection, research, grow-outs, and restoration. You can read about the last 5 years and the plans for the future in the recent progress report. A key part of the National Seed Strategy is Seeds of Success, because the rest of the plant materials cycle doesn't work without the initial material. The mission of SOS is to collect wildland native seed for research, development, ecosystem restoration, and germplasm conservation. SOS started in 2001 as part of a cooperative agreement between Q Millennium Seed Bank and the BLM. Since then, we have grown to include many other federal and non-federal partners. In 2008, an MOU was signed between several of these partners, ratifying SOS as a national native seed collection program in the US. I've given you background on seed success and how seed source selection impacts restoration success. Now I want to specifically focus on what our goals are with native seed collection through Seeds of Success and other seed collection in the Great Basin. We're working to increase commercial availability of locally adaptive native seed based on seed transfer guidance. In the mid-2010s, the BLM Plant Conservation and Restoration Program in the Great Basin focused its attention on collecting operational-sized seed lots of native, genetically appropriate seed that could go to growers for increase and then on to the National Seed Warehouse for distribution to restoration projects across the region. Ideally, these would be chosen over those cultivars that are from northern and eastern spots and currently available in the seed warehouse. Most of the common commercially available seed that's applied in restoration in the Great Basin comes from outside the region, as you see here in these maps of the seed sources of common seed lots. So the labels there are the cultivar names as well as where they are collected from, and the dotted line is the border of the Great Basin Ecoregion. So the vast majority of sources are from areas north or east of the Great Basin. In a 2019 review of Great Basin native plant populations, researchers found that local adaptation is more common than not in the Great Basin. Variation is usually correlated to environment of origin, and local populations will outperform non-local at least 70% of the time. So we know that plants succeed in the habitats that they adapted to. We want restoration practitioners to take advantage of this fact. The maps on the slide earlier showed that the seeds used in most restoration applications across the Great Basin are not from local sources, but maybe that doesn't matter because they're from the same seed zone. You all are likely familiar with the USDA plant hardiness zones that you use for seeds that you put in your garden. The Forest Service and others, however, they've further defined seed zones we use in restoration. In the Great Basin, for many of our species, we use provisional seed zones to guide appropriate seeding locations. They are a mapped area with fixed boundaries that have similar environmental conditions within which plant materials can be transferred, and they are based on minimum winter temperature and aridity. There are 20 in the Great Basin. While this seems like a lot, in 2012, Scott Jensen found that 90% of fire rehabilitation projects on federal land in the Great Basin occurred in 3 major provisional seed zones, and seed zone development efforts should first focus on these zones. Also, remember that we don't need to seed everywhere, like high elevation areas, because they are more likely to naturally recover, and there are less fires in those areas because they tend to be cooler and wetter. For a few species in the ecoregion, we have developed empirical seed zones that combine a species' genetic variation with attributes of a provisional seed zone. It takes into account species' morphology, phenology, and other physiological traits. They are developed using common garden studies, and all of the target grasses we collect with Seeds of Success in the Great Basin have empirical seed zones developed. Now that you know what seed zones are and that we are developing more genetically specific empirical seed zones to guide restoration in the Great Basin, let's return to that question of whether our seed sources supplied from outside the region will be successful because they come from an appropriate seed zone. So looking at this map, we have done a good job in some areas and not in others. So the Columbia, Whitmar, Anatone, and Goldar stars that you can see up on the northern part of the map in the southeastern corner of Washington. These cultivars may work great for more northern, wetter climates, but these are the same sources they are seeding in Nevada, which is much drier. So maybe the Columbia that's in the 3A yellow seed zone would do all right in the yellow seed zones that you can see more broadly spread across the Great Basin. But we now also have specific species-specific seed zones, which we didn't have when these blue bunch cultivars were developed. Seed zones are currently the best available science to inform how to successfully move seed. A key partnership to empirical seed zone development in the Great Basin has been the Great Basin Native Plant Project, which has been led by the BLM-PCRP in cooperation with Rocky Mountain Research Station. Its overarching goal is to increase the variety of native plant materials available for restoration in the Great Basin. Francis Kilkenny discusses efforts in empirical seed zone development in his talk in this session. Common garden studies and seed zones fall under evaluation and development in the native plant materials development process that you've seen throughout this presentation. And that's what guides the plant conservation and restoration program. In the Great Basin, we use a variety of avenues to collect seed. The primary path is through Seeds of Success, but crews have also worked to collect seed for Rocky Mountain Research Station, Common Gardens, and occasionally small seed lots collected beyond the Seeds of Success program are sent for cleaning and increase through other project partners, such as Forest Service Nurseries and the UNR Seed Bank. There are many paths to collect seed, and in the following slides, I address our efforts specific to the Great Basin. With the input of restoration practitioners, botanists, land managers, and researchers from across the region, we compiled a list of 12 to 15 species to prioritize for collection. Most of these species meet one to all of the following criteria. The empirical seed zones are developed or in development. Cultivation practices have been developed. The species are important to sage-grouse habitat, and/or they're pivotal in species establishment or ecosystem function. In 2017, Sarah Culpa from the Reno Fish and Wildlife Service and I completed an analysis of seed zones to determine which provisional and empirical seed zones of our target species are most common across the region, as well as in burned areas and sage-grouse habitat. Those are the priority seed zones that you see on the right. Our goal for most species is to send around 10 populations per seed zone per species of 3 pounds or greater of clean, pure live seed to growers to increase. In 4 years, we have met our collection goal for one species, Lamus cinereus, but seed lots are still in increase and have not made it to the seed warehouse yet. As Francis Kilcanino touched in his talk, we have established common gardens that will eventually inform the creation of empirical seed zones. Common gardens are established for 3 of the Forbes species. In 2021, we had more than 14 crews collecting seeds to meet the goals of the Plant Conservation and Restoration Program. Collecting crews ranged from nonprofit crews working in agreement with BLM, contract crews through BLM's Botanical Services IDIQ, and employees working in agency field offices, refuges, and forests, as well as university partners. Although we did not have crews in all BLM field offices across the region, in previous years, crews have worked in Battle Mountain and Ely, and the following slides will highlight that work. Instrumental to coordinating all of these collaborating partners is the Great Basin Arcgis Online Spatial Hub. Crews use mobile apps to collect data in real time from the field and then sync that data back to the cloud when they return to connectivity. This is all hosted on GeoPlatform, a government site that allows non-federal partners to share their data with federal agencies. In 2002, input from the last 4 years of Great Basin crew efforts in Arcgis Online and Esri mobile apps will help scale the digital data collection to the national level within Seeds of Success. This is a graph of our current state of collections in the Great Basin within empirical seed zones. The blue bars are the targeted goal of collections per seed zone. The orange bars are how many collections we have collected per seed zone, and the gray bars are how many collections are in the fields of growers for increase by seed zone. As you can see, some species we have far exceeded our goal of collections, and some we have barely scratched the surface. Basin wild rye was taken out of our target species list in 2021 because we have more than enough collections and need to start prioritizing increase through grow-outs. Sandberg's bluegrass is another species where we have exceeded or just about met our collection goals. On the other hand, Thurber's needlegrass has only 1 collection per seed zone. And actually just this last month, we sent those populations to increase. So the priority seed zones in the target species list do have some nuance. Forbs have proven to be much more difficult to collect large enough populations for those operational collections. What all these slides are telling you is that plant materials development takes time. And currently we don't have enough seed to buy, so that's why we're developing these seed lots. And collaboration is so necessary in this time and effort. Once we collect all that seed, we send it to growers and move along the native plant materials development process to field establishment and grower production. The main avenue we use to increase seed from BLM's Great Basin Plant Conservation and Restoration Program seed lots is through the seed production IDIQ. So IDIQ is indefinite deliverable, indefinite quantity the seed production contract. The most recent cycle started in 2018, and Great Basin seed lots produced through the IDIQ began arriving at the regional seed warehouse just at the end of this year. Since 2017, Great Basin Plant Conservation and Restoration Program has sent over 200 pounds of seed from more than 100 populations across the Great Basin to growers through the IDIQ. And from these lots, approximately 75,000 pounds of locally adapted native plant seed will be available to field offices from the regional seed warehouse. None of our work would be possible without the strong network of partners with whom we work across the whole span of the native plant development process, which all starts with seed collection. A key partnership with a Nevada focus is the Nevada Native Seed Partnership that hosts the annual Native Seed Forum, which brings producers, technical experts, and land management agencies together to discuss statewide and national seed strategies to support land restoration efforts. The forum, which includes roundtable discussions and presentations, is open to anyone interested in restoration, including federal land management agencies, state partners, current seed producers, potential seed producers, seed collectors, conservation groups, and seed buyers. The 2022 forum is coming up on March 23rd, and it will be held virtually. If you are interested in attending, please reach out to me and I can send you more information. Thank you to all of our project partners, and thank you to the organizers and attendees of the Northern California Botanist Symposium. Please feel free to reach out with anything you'd like to share or any questions that don't get answered in the Q&A.